Would you be interested in hearing a strategy that can change your suboptimal outcomes into optimal interactions and conversations? Great. I want to share with you a couple of my blunders that I've had. One that sticks in my mind is when my significant other asked me to review a letter she had written for our son because he was having a birthday. And I said, sure. The only question I ask is, can I write on it? Because it was a typed letter. And she said, oh, sure. So this is what it looked like when she gave it to me. When I gave it back to her, it looked something like that. And you know how I am, I'm a little obsessive compulsive, so I give it my 100%. I pretty much give everything 100%, except when I donate blood, I only do that at 10%. And wanted me to review the whole thing. I only wanted you to review for content. I assumed I knew what she wanted. On a professional level, I asked one of my employees to review a case file. And she did a phenomenal job, but it was an overkill. It really cost more money than it should have. I assumed that she knew what I wanted. So the word assume was getting me in trouble. And the problem of assuming is in the word itself. It can make a fool of us, you and I. So I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I enrolled in a workshop with a Frankly Covey group. They're a think tank out of Utah that deals with time management, leadership, and communication skills. I really learned a lot from them, and that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. The first thing I want to share is their 4-part motto. And the first out of the 4 parts is that the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it happened. Usually it's 2 monologues, and we don't create the dialogue. The second part is that we listen to reply, but not to understand. The third part is that we need to keep communication hot, honest, open, in 2 ways. Because again, 2 monologues don't make a dialogue. The last one, I think is the most challenging, is to hear what is not being said, or to learn to read between the lines. Not too long ago, I was having a meal, and next to me was a couple, and all of a sudden they started arguing, and it was clear that she was visibly upset. So she gets up, gets in front of him, and he says, "Read between the lines, Bobby," and she stomps away. She put 3 fingers up, and I'm scratching my head. What does that mean? And then it dawned on me. That was one of the most sophisticated birdies I had ever seen. I guess I'm not a really good read between the lines kind of guy. So the best part, though, from this workshop is what I learned next, which is what I want to share with you. And I split it into 3 parts. The first one is, why is communication important, efficient communication? And then, what is communication and what's at stake? And how can we improve our communication skills, our efficiency? So, jumping right in, why is efficient communication important? It's simply to avoid misunderstandings and misconceptions. When I think of communication, I think of a pie with 5 equal parts. Except I spell pie, P-I-I-E-E, and this is the purpose of communication. The first purpose is to persuade. The second purpose is to inform. The third is to inspire. The fourth is to entertain. And the fifth is to express emotion, whether romantic or non-romantic. And if you have a problem with efficient communication, you're going to have a problem with one of these or all of these. So there is a lot at stake. What is communication? It's simply the exchange of information or data. And there's a lot at stake: professional and personal relationships. If you have poor communication, you're going to go in an escalation process, because poor communication first will strain relationships. If it continues, it'll degrade them. And if it continues, it'll destroy them. It starts first with alienation, low morale. Not too bad. It could escalate to annoyance. It could escalate even further to anger, and even further to an altercation. It can cost you time, it can cost you money, And it can even lead to injury and even death. So efficient communication is really that important. This is probably the most important slide. So a workshop was 2 days long, and I'm putting it into one slide. So it's really abbreviated. But how can you improve your communication skills? You want to stack the odds in your favor. Notice I spell stack a little bit differently, S-S-T-A-K. This is the acronym to remember the steps. And I'm going to stop right here and let you know that if you can do the first step really well, it'll change your life starting today. It did for me. I have less misconceptions and misunderstandings. So the first S is you want to set the expectations and the intent of your interaction or conversation at the beginning. And this is a two-way process. I'll take you back to my example. In the first example, I assume what she wanted me to do. My responsibility now, as I see it, is I would have said something like, hey, honey, did I hear you right? You wanted me to review it for grammar, content, and context? And I would have saved myself that awkward moment at that time. And it would have been even less work. I would have saved on some ink. And the other example, and I do it now, when I ask someone to do something for me, I will ask, what did you hear me say? And you will be surprised how often you think you know what you want or what they want, and you're wrong. So this step will significantly improve your life. The second is you want to set an accountability process. If the deliverables are not there, how do you address that? The third is you want to track compliance transparently, especially if you're in the workplace and you're a manager or you're dealing with people. When you track compliance transparently, it's out in the open. It builds trust because you're not doing anything under the table. The fourth is to address the lack of compliance or deliverables in a consistent manner. But the first thing here we need to remember is we want to make it about the issue, never about the person. What was it that wasn't delivered? And address that. Two other things to go with this step is you want to, remember that. You don't want to, you want to. Be very respectful with the other person. And the second is always speak last. Once you raise the issue, let the person talk. Because sometimes they will they'll recognize the problem and they will offer you a solution without you having to say anything that could be stupid, and it actually creates more work in service recovery, making sure that relationship is intact. So be patient, let them talk first. The last one is keep your commitments. Do as you say. If you're consistent with the steps, the foundation you're going to build of consistency is going to be incredible because it leads to reliability, and reliability leads to credibility. And there's nothing more than credibility to build trust. And trust engenders loyalty. And that makes a really good relationship. So, take home. You want to listen to understand and not to reply. You want to keep communication hot, honest, open, in two ways, because two monologues don't make a dialogue. You want to stack the odds in your favor. And this is the most important part of this material. You want to set the expectations at the beginning. You want to set a process of accountability. You want to address the issue and not the person. You want to track compliance. And you want to keep your commitments. So just to let you know that everything is okay with my significant others. This sentence is taken out of context, but it's just to show the point that grammar is really important, and I convinced her that you should make the grammar changes. If you read this sentence, it says, I like to cook my friends and family. It makes you sound like a cannibal. One comma makes the difference. I like to cook my friends and family. Madam Toastmaster.